This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, Janda, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
When you're ready.
We're going to call the New Richmond City Council meeting for November 25th to order. Roll call, everyone is here, present. Pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move to approve tonight's agenda. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda items? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So the first public comment that we have here, this is just our regular public comment for street improvement projects. That'll be after this public comment. Does anybody have anything to address for public comments other than the street project right at the moment?
Excuse me, can you speak up?
Sure, is this better?
Much better, thank you.
Public comments right now is for any other public comment besides street projects. We're gonna get to that part in just a moment. Does anybody want to speak on anything related to public
Turn the
comment?
furnace off.
Okay. All right, if no one has anything for public comment, then we're gonna turn it over to Corey here to talk about the street improvement project.
All right. Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and public. My name is Corey Beanfang. I work with Bolton Mink Engineering, and I serve as the New Richmond City Engineer. And tonight, I'm going to be providing a short presentation on the 2025 Street Utility Improvement Project. I'll kind of be the kickoff then for the improvement hearing. You don't mind telling me how to say next? How does that sound?
Okay.
So I've got a number of slides here. I'm just going to kind of walk through how we got to tonight, talk about the improvements that are being proposed at this time, go into a little greater detail about the next steps, and then we'll conduct the formal hearing where we can hear from folks that wish to speak here tonight. So summary timeline, we've been looking at and planning this 2025 project for about a year now, starting kind of some initial assessments of infrastructure within the city of New Richmond and early 2024, moved forward then and prepared an engineer's report, had a council workshop. That report was formally accepted last month, October. And at that time of acceptance of that report, then we ordered the improvement hearing tonight. And folks received mailed invites to the property as well as newspaper publishings that then allows us to conduct this hearing tonight. It's a necessary step for the Chapter 429, that's a special assessment process. I'll cover that a little bit later, but this is the first of 2 hearings that are required to get feedback from the area that's proposed to be improved, and that's an important part of tonight. I'll cover that. Sequence of events for the hearing is staff, that's me. I give a presentation here. I'll close that presentation, council then formally an open hearing. At that time, we'll record for the record comments from those folks that wish to speak. Hearing will be closed. At that time, I'll come back up, council can engage with discussion questions, and then we are going to consider a resolution for taking the next step of this project process. Next, please. So in 2023, that was the first year that the city conducted sanitary sewer cleaning and televised, and it was year 1 of a 5-year program. So this year, we completed our second, next year will be the third. of an intent to clean and televise all of the sanitary sewer system, focusing on that piece of infrastructure. The 2023 area focused in on the project that we're presenting here tonight. Ash and Broadway were included on that, as well as 3rd, 4th, 1st. And the powerful takeaway from this figure is red and purple are the extremely poor and the poor. And so noticing here, all of Broadway is red or purple, a good majority of Ash, 4th Street's purple, 3rd Street's red. So what the important takeaway from this is the infrastructure, utility-wise, underneath this project area is very poor, and a lot of emphasis on the sanitary sewer. That's with noted concern of some of the ongoing flooding, and we have a number of things in process here to try to, I guess, understand and manage that. The ongoing flood mitigation study, our televising to get a sense of the condition of the sewer. What we're noticing is it's a clay sewer, a lot of holes, infiltration, high I&I, and that's water that the sewer isn't intending to convey. And so when it is overwhelmed with that type of flow that it's not intended to convey, it's not able to convey, and backing up and causing those flooding concerns. So this project is an attempt to address some of those infrastructure concerns. It won't solve all of them. That's the reason for those other ongoing studies and efforts, as well as the need to do greater than this project area. But we need to start somewhere. That's kind of been the balance of starting somewhere, but managing the cost of the community. We'll talk about that as well. Next, please. So the 2025 project area is focusing on 4 streets within the city of New Richland. Ash Street, there from Trunk Highway 30 to 4th Street. Similar limits for Broadway, including the 1 block of 4th end between Ash and Broadway, and the 1 block of 3rd from Broadway to the dead end. So that's the project area that we're here tonight to discuss. Noticing that we're staying on the south right-of-way of Trunk Highway 30 there is an ADA project that MnDOT is currently planning and in the process of delivery. Right now we have a schedule that communicates that project is going to be completed in 2026. That will be to be determined yet, but at this time then that's kind of setting our northern limits. We're staying out of the Trunk Highway 30 right-of-way with this project. Next, please. So the project that's being proposed, 2025 street utility project, is kind of literal in the sense of the name of it, focusing with utilities first. So those are the infrastructure underneath the roadway. Sanitary sewer, that's your deepest utility typically. We already talked about why the condition of that warrants a project of this nature. So we replace the sanitary sewer mains, all the services to the right of way. Typically in the case of this corridor, that's the backside of the sidewalk. Water mains similarly would be replaced, all the water mains, hydrants, gate valves, and then services to the same extent as the sanitary sewer. Storm sewer piping would all be replaced, catch basin, manholes addressed, and then a roadway underdrain system to help control frost protection, freeze frost, and as well as an opportunity to connect on sump pumps. I'll touch on this a little bit later, but notice, recognizing there are sump pumps, the presence of those, the opportunity to have those outlet into a storm sewer system instead of just over the yard, or over the sidewalk into the gutter. Then once the utilities are replaced, we look at the road surface itself. And so in a case like this, it's a full street reconstruction is how we classify it. We'd be prepping the subgrade, new sand, new rock, new bituminous, new concrete curb and gutter, and then new sidewalk. For the sake of the discussion tonight, we're proposing to put sidewalk back only on one side. I know we're going to receive feedback on that tonight, but that's what's being proposed tonight. The intent is to set a policy with this project going forward. Sidewalk on one side would be a requirement of all city streets. Assumptions are right now that would be the west side and the north side for those designated east-west and north-south corridors. Once the streets are improved, then we would do turf restoration, pavement markings if warranted. And then another consideration on this is I emphasize the replacement of the services to the right-of-way, the backside of the sidewalk. With this project, there would be an opportunity to replace those further. From that point then into the home, essentially a full replacement. Those would be at a request by, and those would be at a cost to the homeowner. So kind of maximizing the improvement, but recognizing that would be something that would be requested and above and beyond. Next, please. So what's under my street? This is a graphic here. I think we've shared this in the council packet previously, but it's just a graphical depiction of what is kind of a street utility project. So sanitary is the green there. That's your deepest utility as described. Water, very literal, is the blue. Orange then is the storm sewer system. That's typically the shallowest. And then you get a sense of what the street layers are, curb and gutter. This picture is emphasizing the sidewalk there and kind of designating that right of way. So typically in this case, it's backside of sidewalk, the backside of sidewalk kind of sets where that project improvement is, that area that the city has opportunity to maintain and locate its infrastructure. Next, please. So we'll start here. I'm going to, next few slides, I'm just going to kind of walk through each of the project streets and kind of share with you some of the high points of the design, at least what's being, again, proposed tonight. So Ash Avenue South, that's the first one, showing very literal there. We'll just go top left to right. That will be the easiest for folks to follow, I think. So our south project limits then is on the 4th Street. So we're improving that intersection there with 4th Street. And then continuing then all the way up to Trunk Highway 30, staying out of the roadway surface of 30 itself. Yellow is the roadway, so in this case you can see the road's fully improved. We've got utilities on there, and the pink is the sidewalk. And so in this case, sidewalks being proposed very literally on the west side. Ash Street right now is a 37.5-foot roadway. We're proposing to widen that to 40. That gives you 2 12-foot drive lanes and then 2 8-foot shoulder or parking lanes. So that map then equates to 40 feet. Sidewalk along the west side, that'd be a 5-foot sidewalk. For the most part, sidewalk exists already through the school property. We would then continue it to the south project limit so that it could be continued then as part of a future project. 9-ton axle load design and water main is noted right now on Ash Street to be a 4-inch water main, so we'd upgrade that to 8-inch. So a pretty sizable improvement that way. 4-inch is not allowed pipe size for water main anymore. That doesn't meet standards. So that's something this project would improve and address. Next, please. Broadway Avenue South, that's the next one then. Very similar in limits. We are going a pinch farther south than 4th Street on Broadway. There's a storm sewer system there that starts at that location, and we felt it very worthwhile to go and grab and make that improvement. So we're going a little bit further south on Broadway than 4th Street, but very intentional to catch that storm sewer system. So again, similar improvement, sanitary water main, depicted there in the blue and the green. Storm is orange, yellow is the street, so full street reconstruction, new curb, and then sidewalk being proposed continuous on the west side. That's the pink there. So it just be on the one side. The east side, all of those catwalks or carriage walks, you might call them, that come from the house, those would be extended to the curb. So still connection to the road, but there wouldn't be a sidewalk on the east side. That's not consistent with the policy that we spoke to, continuous on one side. In this case, it's being proposed on the west side. Broadway is a 40-foot road today, and what is being proposed is to narrow that to a 36-foot road. That would give you 2 11-foot drive lanes and 2 7-foot parking lanes. So not intending to restrict parking on Broadway, but narrow the roadway. And I'll share with you why. It's really a cost-based decision, and I'll show you the cost impacts of reconstructing it to 40 in a couple slides. But right now, the proposal is to narrow that roadway to a 36. There are roadways that are 36 in town. There are roadways that are less than 36 in town. So there is some, I guess, some defense to that. I realize we're going to receive feedback on that tonight. So sidewalk along the west side, a 9-ton design still. Water main 6-inch. We propose to go to 8-inch on Broadway. Again, kind of that minimum standard is pretty acceptable now to be an 8-inch water main. Next, please. So then 4th Street, 3rd Street. I'll kind of take them in order as they lay there on the screen. So 4th Street. That's the east-west corridor connecting Ash to Broadway. That roadway is a 31-foot today, kind of an awkward dimension. So at least for the sake of the proposal tonight, we've widened that to a 32, kind of a more standard width. We also have 32s in town, so it felt warranted that way. Sidewalk on the north side, so a limited amount of sidewalk on the south side of 4th Street today. It's a more available corridor on the north side, and it's consistent with that sidewalk policy that I described in intent. Sidewalk on one side, north side for the east-west.
You're talking about policy. What
It's a policy that's yet to be developed. Yep, it's going to be used as a defense in this design, and then it's going to be something that's going to be discussed and adopted for future plans.
Proposed policy.
Exactly right. Yep. And all this tonight is just proposed. So trying to defend the design that we have presented tonight. We're going to receive feedback on it. That can be weighed and evaluated in the actual final outcome. So I think that's what's important. 9-ton here. Understanding it's a critical connection, the only connection, honestly, between Ash and Broadway, south of 30. Significant on 4th Street here is we're rerouting the sanitary over to Ash. We know that there is some some, bottlenecking as a Broadway and Ash outlet and intercept there to 30. So we're gonna direct all of the Ash Street sanitary sewer, including Fourth, we're gonna bring that then down Ash and try to avoid that manhole connection at 30 and Broadway. So an improvement that we can make that way instead of sending everything to Broadway. And then water mains being looped. There's no water main on 4th Street today, so we'll be able to provide a loop and help with that water circulation south of 30. We feel that's a benefit. 3rd Street then, kind of a, tricky little roadway there, 1 block, dead ends, railroad tracks. Roadway's 39 feet today. We're proposing to put it back at a 32, so narrowing it down, kind of recognizing its place as far as connectivity and what the roadway provides. So feel like there's some value that way. Sidewalk on one side, the north side. There isn't any sidewalk on 3rd Street today. A little lesser axle ton expectation there from the roadway just because of its purpose and it's what it serves there. There's 3 homes on 3rd Street, and then we are proposing to incorporate a cul-de-sac turnaround. It's really the largest turnaround we can fit in that right of way, but recognizing a dead road, it is a design intent to have a cul-de-sac for turnaround for purposes of either traveling public or garbage or emergency services. So right now we're proposing to put a cul-de-sac on there. We feel it's warranted in the dead end street conditions. Next, please. So estimated project cost. So right now, we're in the planning phases, so we're making our best estimate of what this project cost is gonna entail. These are total project costs, so these include some contingency, administration, engineering, legal. This is meant to be all in, as well as the construction costs. So we've got them broken out there in the 4 streets. You can see Ash, Broadway, 4th, 3rd, equating to a total project cost just over $3 million. When we look at this project cost, where is the funding coming from? Well, we've got utility enterprise funds. We've got 3 of those, 2 are existing, 1's a newer fund. We have the sanitary, the water, and then the new storm sewer enterprise. Special assessments, chapter 429, I'm gonna cover that, but that's a portion of project cost and is assessed to those benefiting adjacent properties. We have bonds that we're expecting to secure for this project, and then just the general funds, the resources that the city has in place already. Next, please. So prior to the night, we did have an open house, notice in a kind of a similar capacity of the improvement hearing, where it was informal, it was held in this room. We had all of this same information being presented, no presentation, but it was accessible, and based on feedback, Q&A, we were able to, describe the same improvements that I'm presenting here tonight. I think we had a pretty consistent category of feedback. Road width, specifically the road width on Broadway, was something that was emphasized and expected to be again tonight. Sidewalks, we received feedback, I would say mostly in conjunction to reduction of sidewalks. So the elimination of sidewalk, just going to the one side. Received some feedback on sanitary sewer services. I think I covered that already. The opportunity to replace beyond the right of way. Again, the right of way to the street is covered with the project, but it's at distance then from the right of way into the home. That's an opportunity, but again, requests an additional cost. And then we have some feedback based on the sump pump connections, and I've got a detail there just describing our intent to provide that to all properties so that there would be an opportunity to connect those sump pumps and not have those outletting again over the sidewalk into the curb system. So for some feedback for further information, I guess tonight as we're evaluating some of these concerns and these feedbacks, knowing that I got it at the open house, I was able to prepare here to present this for the sake of council and the public. So increasing Broadway Avenue from the 36 to the 40 feet that would match the existing, there's an approximate cost additional of over $30,000, about $31,500. Eliminated walk on 3rd Street, we heard some feedback regarding that. That's a reduction of about $12,500. And then adding sidewalk on the east side of Broadway, so then that would be continuous sidewalk on both sides of Broadway. That would be an additional cost of about $55,000 to add it on the east side. Again, it's already accounted for on the west side. Next, please. So chapter 429, it's a state statute that allows cities to special assess projects that are adjacent to an improvement. It's a special assessment. The idea in the chapter 429 statute is properties adjacent to a project are benefiting based on that project improvement. So cities have an opportunity to levy or allocate via an assessment of some of that benefit. Now, it's described in the statute, the process to do that, but it defers to an assessment policy then of how it's done in a specific community for a specific project. So the city of New Richland, as part of this process, adopted a special assessment policy that we intend to apply to this project. We'll cover that on the next slide, kind of the specifics of it. But it was in recognition that the previous policy was quite dated and referenced percentages of assessment and things that we feel weren't applicable and justifiable to the cost of a project now. So I think the recognition is the assessment is more defendable and more just in this process. But the next slide will kind of cover that. So adjacent benefiting properties, very literal in this sense. It's all the properties that are adjacent to the project area that I described tonight. So Ash Street, Broad, 4th, and 3rd. Next, please. So preliminary assessment role, this was included in that engineering report. It's accessible on the meeting packet that the feasibility report was adopted in October 28th. Preliminary assessment role. So the intent is to specially assess 30% of the street costs based on an adjusted front footage basis. So whatever your front lot width is, 30% of the street costs would then be assessed per foot based on that adjusted front footage. So kind of a pretty consistent measurement for assessments is the adjusted front footage, 30% of that. So, total project street costs divided by, take 30% of that, divided by the total length, and then reapply it based on the frontage of the individual properties. That's how that assessment is calculated. 30% of the sanitary and water then is assessed. These are based on a per parcel basis. So essentially, if you have a sewer or a water service, you're assessed a lump sum cost of the sewer or water, 30% of that. So 30% of the sanitary costs divided by the total number of services, that gives you the cost per service, times back by if you have a sewer service similar with the water. The remaining then, in this case, it's the 70%, then that is the non-assessed cost, that's the responsibility of the city. And that would be then those funding sources that I described that aren't special assessments. So enterprise funds, bonding, general fund, that would cover that remaining 70% portion. Storm sewer in this case is being not assessed, 100% being covered by the stormwater utility. So no assessment for storm sewer. The assessment process requires another assessment hearing. So that's the second hearing as far as required by state statute for chapter 429. First hearing is tonight, improvement hearing, expecting to identify the project area so that those adjacent to it can be prepared that you're receiving an assessment. The assessment hearing is the second hearing. That is to emphasize the amount of the assessment. And that has a similar notification of publishing in the paper, mailing to the property. Very similar to the improvement hearing tonight. So you shouldn't miss the next step, the assessment hearing. I'll cover the schedule when you can expect that. Next, please. So schedule and next step. So tonight here we are, the improvement hearing. The important thing about tonight is that this is a consideration to solidify the project area, to recognize that improvement is justified, needed, and warranted. And then we order the plans and specs, so order the engineering of it. Tonight, we've concepted a project. We proposed an attempt to define what the project design would be, but we haven't done any design. We haven't surveyed, we haven't prepared any final plans or specs. That's the consideration tonight. So important thing is to consider, are we moving forward in the next step to deliver a project? The details of that design are very much still to be determined, right? Things like street widths and sidewalks, those can be changed. Those aren't being decided tonight. The important thing to capture tonight is, are we improving Ash, Broadway, 4th and 3rd Street as part of a project to be constructed next year? So that's important. That's what's being considered here tonight. After that, if we get a council acceptance of the resolution, then we enter a 4-month survey and design period. My goal is to try to survey this project if we're moving forward next month, try to beat the snow. And then we would go through and design this then into the first quarter of 25. We have many other touch points. So the final plans that are brought forward to council to be approved, and then those are authorized for bids. That's a council action. That's when things like street widths, how many sidewalks are being constructed, that's when it's all final, would be that meeting in March. We go out for bids, we bring bids back for council to be considered for award, that would be the approval to construct something. That would be the April meeting. Then we construct, so that's spring through fall, summer, and then you see the assessment process. So fall, I'll call it, end of summer 2025, the council would declare to have costs assessed. That's when we prepare the final roll, and then we hold the assessment hearing in October. The important thing is we would target certification of those assessments by the end of the year. Typically, that's the end of October 2025, and then that assessment cost to the property, then that payment would be then, the first payment would be expected in 2026. So kind of a, calendar year designation there, I think is important. And with that, I think next slide, please, is the end of my presentation. So hopefully gave a little feedback to what we're proposing, the process here tonight. So I'll be back up, but I think now the important consideration, Mayor, is to open the public hearing.
So we'll open the public hearing for anyone to come up and talk. If you come up, state your name and where you live so we know, and we'll go from there.
I'll go.
If you just come up to the podium. Yep. Yes.
Monica Gusky at 404 Ash Avenue South. I'm interested in seeing what you showed us in March. I happen to live right at the very end of where I can see, but it's so small on all of these maps, and I want to see more detail on that. And so my other question is, bottom line, what you said, there's no answer on what the amount will be for each of our properties until another meeting?
So assessments, I believe, are gonna be in the fall for final numbers, because we still have to go up to bid.
But isn't that after construction?
Assessments?
No, it's
That's
after.
after. It's
This
after.
is,
So we're gonna find out. what
this
it's
is just a
about
public
after
hearing on the
it's done?
project. This is just a public hearing on the project. So there's really not back and forth. It's just a,
So then the answer would be no. We don't provide information.
the information's there.
Still can't hear? Okay.
We really need a speaker.
So,
Microphone, yeah.
right,
Really hard for us
Well,
to hear.
I asked, when will we find out what each of us are gonna owe for this whole project? Is it that next meeting that you had mentioned? But, or it's not gonna be today. I mean, you gave us estimates and all of this. But, and then the 30% calculation, is there any way we can figure this out? None of this is approved, but it's an estimate, right?
it's an estimate right at the moment. We don't have set numbers,
Until
no,
it's
until we start going into the next steps of it. We don't have exact numbers. We won't know that right away. We're kind of going on projections of what things have cost,
So
for
there's no set date when us residents will know.
Not at the moment. I mean, you mentioned in the presentation, it would be in the fall after the project's done when we have exact numbers. But, we don't have the set numbers yet, or the percentage of assessment. Tonight's meeting is more about hearing everybody's concerns of what they would like, what their concerns about the project is, and then we'll take that into consideration with going forward for the project.
Okay. My mistake, I thought this was approved last year. I thought this got approved last year to be done. And now it's just being decided on how to be done and then telling all of us. This was approved last fall. We have this done.
We started looking into it last year, beginning of this year, to get things going, but we don't have exact numbers to get estimates of what it costs. It's all estimated.
So fall of next year, we may know something more about definite numbers. I mean,
Well, they had the estimates on there. It was like 1.3 million for Broadway, 1.1 for Ash or something like that.
Yeah,
So it'd be 30%
of that.
of that total number divided by how many feet you have in front of your house, right? Something to that extent. So we could get an idea, but that's a lot of math for most.
Well, I'd like to know something before next fall, and then
Before
it's,
it's done.
this is what it
Well, they're
is,
starting to
and
work
this
in the
is what
spring,
you owe,
so,
and then we have,
It kind of makes sense to know what it's
Where
gonna
are we
cost
at then?
before we say, sure, go ahead and do it. I mean, it needs to be done.
Everything's been
Don't get
posted
me wrong.
online. It's all available. This is the hearing for the project.
So this step of it is the hearing for the project. We don't, everything is online on the city's website for the agendas with all the information of the street project and what we've kind of budgeted or estimated what the project cost would be. But for right now, it's just kind of going over, the hearing for the improvement project. We don't have all the answers. We're not gonna be able to answer everything tonight. We're trying to hear what the community would like to address, and then we go from there.
A lot of that information was available at the open house.
So, a lot of it is online. It was at the open house as well. I know Corey came to talk tonight too and go over some of that as well. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. It's just kind of, there is the information. Some of you just have to go online to get.
I could look online to see what was
Mhm.
just shown. Okay.
Yes, everything is
Okay.
listed on there.
Okay, then I can zoom in. and
Correct.
see.
Yep. You
Okay.
could print it out if you want. It's all on a
That's
PDF.
okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, just to give some clarification, and city can decide on to what extent we want to make this information available, but that feasibility report that I referenced, that PER, preliminary engineers report, that was accepted at a council meeting. It was October 28th, I believe. In that agenda, in that packet, in that preliminary engineers report is a preliminary assessment rule. That was in there. That's accessible via the city agenda packet. In there is a breakdown of that 30% cost based on the project estimate. And there is a projection then what that assessment would be per property based on that current policy. So folks want to be informed and get a better, in there are those same figures that I shared tonight. You can blow those up, you can print those. In there is also preliminary assessment based on the preliminary engineer's estimate. So I believe that information is accessible, definitely accessible now. Whether we want to make it more accessible, that's something to consider, but that information is there. It's October 20th.
It's not an exact number, but it's an idea of what it will cost overall.
Correct.
I've got a question in regards to that also. I mean, when it comes, we live on Third Street.
Yeah, I think it would be better.
Yeah,
I think it's important for the record if you take the time to come here tonight.
Sean Owens, I live on Third Street. Like on Third Street, there's only the two houses that are there. And on Fourth Street, I think, was it 3 houses possibly? So how's that gonna work with the 30%? It doesn't matter square footage, because we own like 2/3 of the block, our property has. So we'd be responsible for the full 30% of the cost of that street.
Previous meetings also. You're only assessed on one side, not both sides.
Yeah, what happens to houses that are on a corner, they get assessed on both sides?
No,
That house on the south side though, this goes all the way to the train track. He's got that whole
Yep.
thing. Plus, he's gonna have part of Broadway.
Yeah.
That would be a big chunk, 30%, I would imagine, it's based off feet. No, his lot goes all the way to the dead end. His lot goes all the way to the train track.
I know it does, but the road's not being built.
No, it's not just past houses. But still, that's a long stretch for him. On two roads. I don't know if that's- Yeah. You guys got a lot of feet there. Well,
Exactly. Okay.
I'll go next since I'm right here. Gene Frost, 303 Broadway South. The whole removing the sidewalk, that would be my side. I am on the east side. So not replacing means just taking it out. It'll just be grass all the way to the curb. Or you're gonna leave the old sidewalk there. I guess I'm not sure. You said you're not gonna replace it, but are you removing it?
I believe that's the plan, is to remove it.
I
And then
thought
that's when
he
they
said
would have
something
to-
about extending my sidewalk all the way to the curb. So
Yep.
that makes me think he would remove it. I'm
Correct.
fine with that. I don't
Yep.
need it.
Because then it just goes right to the street, so you still have access from the street to your house.
Yeah, I think the bigger concern for me would be the narrowing of Broadway coming to my street. Are you gonna narrow the other side when you do the other side?
I guess, I just wanted to jump in. I guess it'd be more effective for the council, for everybody is this is more of kind of just a one-way conversation from you guys to the council. It's not really designed to be kind of a back and forth. So I guess what they're looking for from you is more of what you would like to see. So for you, for like the sidewalk conversation, more of what I would like to see is if you would remove the whole sidewalk and put it back completely grass. That was what would like to see.
really
So
don't have a preference.
yeah.
I'll leave that up to my neighbors.
um,
I could care less if there's a sidewalk there or not. What I do care about is that alley behind my house. It's in bad shape. It's really crazy to come off 30 into that alley. It's like, not nice. We could definitely use, at the bare minimum, some rock on that thing. There's like a 2-inch gap of cement coming out of that alley. And most of us just go to the other end because that's so bad. I'd like to see that addressed, brought down, leveled out, whatever, something. Since we're working on it. Thank you.
I'm gonna sneak around in front here if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
I'm Bob Swenson, I live at 506. And my concern, actually to address a couple of them right away, was expanding it to 40 feet, because quite frankly, that, the storm sewer that your project ends at is about 25 feet up. My concern would be the sidewalk in there. The sidewalk that runs along that whole area is almost 200 feet long across the front of my property. And you're proposing to replace 25 feet of it, which to me seems kind of stupid. I don't see, I can understand why you need to replace the curb, put in an ADA accessible type thing and things like that, but I don't see why you wouldn't take and either do all of the sidewalk or just not do it at all, at least at that point. And that's pretty much the only concern I had is you play help with the sidewalk on the south side there, because quite frankly, there's 6 big ass trees right in the way. To address that gentleman's thing, along that stretch of road, the only house there is Mayor Ferguson's house that isn't assessed on some other side of the thing. So I don't know, it seems like 30% would be a pretty big hit for her too, to be honest with you. But that's what I got. Thank you.
You want to go up?
Well, I just want to ask you, there was a petition that went around our neighborhood, and I was just wondering, I think that showed a lot of our concerns, if that was going to be presented.
I do have that here, and I did hand it out to each of the council on that, and we will take these notes into considerations. I do see.
May I read it?
You certainly can.
Or did everybody see it already?
I've never seen it. I didn't even get an invite to the open house, but I know where it was. I've only been there.
The following is a petition by signed residents who wish to express their views and opinions on the proposed street work South Broadway Avenue and 3rd Street Southeast.
Make sure you state your name so anyone watching knows who you are.
I am Brenda Howell.
I know who you are.
520 South Broadway. 302 South Broadway. We strongly oppose the narrowing width of South Broadway Avenue after Main Street. 3rd Street North, South Broadway Avenue, along with Ash Avenue South are highly used for the school. We feel that narrowing of South Broadway Avenue, which would cause approaching traffic need to weave around parked cars to pass each other, as explained to us at the public meeting, is too dangerous for the amount of traffic that uses South Broadway Avenue. Added to the fact of additional traffic hauling tree branches and such, which sometimes are sticking out wider than the transportation vehicle, would make the narrowing of South Broadway more dangerous to approaching traffic and traffic parked along the side of the street. We strongly oppose the elimination of the sidewalk on the east side of South Broadway. After Main Street, Highway 30, the school, these two sidewalks are probably the most used. If you lived along them, you would know that. In the spring, both of them are frequently used by the track team. Plus, South Broadway has a tradition of heavy attendance during Halloween trick-or-treating. With the poor lighting along South Broadway Avenue, it will be very dangerous for those kids who travel the east side of the street without a sidewalk. With the elimination of the sidewalk, it could create a situation of kids walking out into the street when trick-or-treating. At night, this would be dangerous. We oppose the proposed addition of a sidewalk to 3rd Street Southeast. It would be a waste of money. There is not enough traffic for it. Use that money for a sidewalk for the east side of Broadway Avenue. Even the people who live on 3rd Street Southeast say it is a waste of money to install a cul-de-sac at the east end of 3rd Street Southeast. Use that money for the sidewalk on the east side of South Broadway Avenue or to keep the current width of the street. And then it's, the following pages are a list of the residents that he did find at home and went around and visited, and they signed the sheet, and he did have a very good turnout.
I would have signed it too. Just saying. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Those are the more of the.
I have school buses come by every day at 3:00, and that, narrowing of this would make a big difference for that. Plus, I see school kids come down my sidewalk every day too. Well, I think he makes a good point with that too.
Nicole Weitzel, I live on 113 3rd Street Southeast.
Nicole, a little bit louder, honey.
Oh, okay. Live on 3rd Street, and one of our concerns with 3rd Street also, I think, was just read in the letter, is that, also the narrowing of the street. I know our neighbor that's, next to us, which is on the very end of the street, he said recently that he's had problems with, getting his trash picked up. There were 2 consecutive weeks where it was not picked up. And I understand those are very large trucks, and they tried turning around at the end of the street, and it's very difficult for them. So they have been pulling into the alley and then having to back down the street to get to his trash can. And I don't believe putting the cul-de-sac in there is gonna help the problem, because again, it is a large truck. And another thing with that is with snow removal in the winter time, we have a pickup truck with a blade that comes down the street, and he pushes the snow towards the tracks as far as he can go with it. The cul-de-sac there, I think there's gonna be a problem with snow removal, getting it off the street. Another issue is with the sidewalk there, which was stated with the letter. We don't have the foot traffic, there's just a handful of kids that come down the street, and I don't think they use the sidewalk anyways, even with it there. So, those are just some important points in our neighborhood, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Scherson, 327 South Broadway, lived there 34 years. It's quite a dandy little project you guys are putting together. I think it's kind of a Cadillac thing, and we live in Richland, not Owatonna or Mankato, and I think we need to perhaps look at some of these things we're doing as far as costs. I think they're just, as people have already stated, are really unnecessary. I'll start with South Broadway. Narrowing it is the complete wrong thing to do. You mentioned buses, the Halloween kids. That is probably the busiest street in Richland, other than regular Broadway and Highway 30. So I think narrowing it would just definitely be a danger. I don't see a reason for doing sidewalk work on any of the streets, to tell you the truth. Because like I say, on Third, it's not gonna be used. And I think sidewalk on both sides as existing are just fine. Why tear up perfect curb and gutter on the west side? If it's just a narrow it and put curb and gutter back, I can't believe there'd be that much cost. But gotta be the cost savings by keeping it using the existing structure. See what else we talk about. The streets, they had a roundabout, it's just kind of, none of those streets, as far as I'm concerned, need increasing or decreasing in width. A roundabout down there, these guys have been working, everybody's lived on there for 35 years. I've been there, can we just handle that and navigate that fine? We don't need to tear up a scorched earth policy on this and start with everything. Let's use existing structure, the infrastructure we already have. Granted, some of the underground stuff does need replacing, but I don't think we need to polish it up as high as you guys want, or they're proposing to have polished. So I think we need to look at it again as far as what we can do with existing infrastructure and what is really bad and what we can still go with. And I just think they're looking at the highest buck thing they can. I think I gotta believe we could save a lot more money than what we propose. So I would say vote no, and let's look at this again, please. Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
I live on Ash Avenue, and I think it's absolutely stupid that you're gonna widen that street. If you talk to the bus drivers, I've talked to them, and Dale Agronson says, it's just ludicrous. He said, that street's wide enough. He said, you widen it, and he said, it's gonna be a clearing surface with the parents bringing kids to school. We tried to block it off so they aren't going around the buses. He said, you widen it, then they got all kinds of room to go around. And then if you just come out, take 3 feet of our front yard, we won't even be able to park. If we have company, we're gonna park 4 cars in the driveway. They'd be hanging out in the street. You put all that new concrete down in the parking lot and everything, now you're gonna rip all that up and take 3 feet away from that. But I think the bus drivers should have some say. My husband drove bus. He never complained once. The only problem is they should make it a one-way street during school hours so that you don't have all this traffic coming up Broadway and over to Ash. If you made it a one-way street during school hours, I'd have no problem with that. I'd only have to go around the block once. When I come home, I could come home the way I usually come home. But I think it's just stupid that you just think you're gonna take 3 feet off the front of our yard. I don't know what I paid taxes. Sure, you say that maybe the city owns it, but I paid taxes and insurance on it for 63 years too. Is they gonna reimburse me for all the years I paid taxes on it? Excel, look what you're gonna have to, look at the expense of just having Excel Energy is gonna have to move all those poles. All the street signs will have to be moved that just got put up. I think you better think pretty serious about that because I'm gonna fight it. Yeah. Why is that no? Bus drivers are in favor of the law.
My name is Irene Pereira. I live on 401 Ash Avenue South. I guess I'm a first time homeowner, so I don't know how this goes. But the individual assessments is because it's benefiting us, like the sidewalks and the roadway, and the benefit like the whole school district. Like the buses go on, I don't know, 4 or 8 buses a day. the sidewalks all the kids in the whole city are walking to get home on? Shouldn't it be like more of a city tax thing than just people living here? That's kind of my question. Because everyone kind of benefits, even in Allendale, like all the sports, everybody going through. I know in the cities, the city was trying to do that same thing, and it was a main road to Kalamazoo, so like more people benefited from that, and it didn't get to individual assessment. Because like I said, a lot of people ride that whole that's the whole way to get into the school and out, so to me, it doesn't make sense that just the people living there are getting taxed on it.
Would anybody else like to speak tonight? With that, we'll close the public hearing then, and then we're gonna close the public hearing if no one else wants to speak. And Corey's gonna come back up and talk a little bit, and then go from there. Oh.
To close the whole hearing?
You wanna make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I have nothing formal further. Happy to address any questions or comments that the council may have in consideration then of the resolution that's for tonight, the R 2024-25. And that resolution is, I think, consistent to the messaging that I portrayed earlier, in that it is a recognition that improvement hearing has been held, and it's to order the preparation of plans and specs based on the project area that's been described tonight. The specifics of that project improvement, I think, are noted and not something that we're deciding on tonight, but we are deciding to continue the project process and to further evaluate and formalize what that project improvement is going to be for those streets that are being proposed. So happy to address council's questions or concerns in regards to that. But that is a consideration that's before you tonight for approval.
Question. I think I heard you say, but I want you to say it again. What anybody said in here tonight isn't being approved of here. It's going to be taken into consideration. We're just going to say, yes, let's go ahead with the project. Is that what you just said?
Correct. So to kind of break this down, so we preliminarily looked at this project improvement to address some of the comments that were made tonight. So it was looked at to be a comprehensive street utility project, kind of recognizing that there's age to all the infrastructure here. And so you come in and you approve all the infrastructure with the expectation that then that's the longevity that you expect and can predict for the next number of years, 20 years on the pavement, 60, 80, 100 years in the utility. So that's the mindfulness that this project was presented tonight at a preliminary level. We made an assumption on the extent of the improvement so then we could predict project costs, that preliminary engineer's report, that preliminary engineer's estimate to give you a full final project cost. Then within that, we can then predict, break out that 30% for that preliminary assessment role. So everything is kind of tied with that. Can the improvements be expanded to add sidewalks, widen widths? Sure, then that comes at an increasing cost. So just making sure that that messaging is consistent and understood. Things can be reduced too. Now we reduce the cost. So all of it is matching in what the proposal is tonight based on that preliminary engineer's report. That is consistent to what's being presented tonight. So can that change? Certainly can. That's the direction of council. Just recognize there's going to be some cause and effect with that. But as my schedule alluded to, there's many more steps here in this project process, but this is a necessary step to allow for advancement in that project presentation. So
Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, but once the survey is done, it'll be a lot easier for the council to make it'll be a lot easier for the council to see where those sidewalks and things could go and where that street will go based on your actual survey to actually see where those roads line up and stuff, especially on like 4th, where we know we have some boundary issues.
Yeah, Ford has a tight right of way, that's known. We haven't gone through and done a conditional assessment. It wasn't an intent tonight to say, this portion of the sidewalk's crack-free and condition that we could justify saving it. This portion of the sidewalk isn't, right? It's cracked and it's deteriorated, we would replace it. Similar with the curbs, there's no doubt there's deteriorated curbs, settled or cracked curbs. Are there areas of good curbs? Sure. Maybe that location of good curb is where we're gonna have to come through to replace the services, so maybe that doesn't warrant saving. Could we look at saving some of the curbs? I think we certainly could, we just haven't invested that amount of time or that amount of scrutiny based on direction from council. Other things to consider too, when you save pieces of infrastructure, then you're tying into that with your new design. So just realizing that's gonna have some impact, the curb drainage isn't gonna be continuous from start of the project to the end of the project. We'd have these intermittent segments we'd have to tie into. Is that feasible? We'll have to get the survey to understand that. So I think this thing can be broken down and analyzed further, but for the sake of tonight, to manage the investment as we work through these processes at the transparency of the community and the discretion of council, we've made an attempt to predict and plan something right now, but it's all based on aerial. We have no survey. So that information can be acquired and then that detail can be forthcoming.
So the resolution before you, if you adopted, says that you're just going to go through with the project and then.
Can you put that timeline up there where it says today in big bold letters?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like you to say, to kind of put some of these people's concerns at ease, where is the date on that we would be determining, yes, we're going to add this, or yes, we're going to delete this? What date?
I don't know which one you're talking about.
It's
in our packet.
Yeah.
Because I think they kind of like to know, when's the drop dead date of what's going to happen. Am I right there, people?
So I'll tell you the drop dead date. So the intent is on March 10th, there's no more changes to the project. We'll start there. That's the very fundamental drop dead date in the sense of the intent is the final plan is brought forward for council for approval and authorization to advertise for bids. So once you advertise for bids, you try to manage the changes so that you can have a fair and competitive bid process, obviously. I'm not saying it never happens, but we try to manage it. Certainly don't want to be changing street lists and adding sidewalks at that point. So from March 10th to now, I'd say is our window. Preferably it's on the earlier side of this window than the later so that we can put forth a good product in that final plan and spec.
That comes to my next point. 2/18/25 is another neighborhood meeting that they can bring their concerns back to here again.
Yeah, we I think based on the feedback is, there is likely going to be a good consideration for another open house, right? We've got enough here that it's likely going to need to be re-informed and some transparency in that decision that council makes and how we're evolving through this process. So that's in the preliminary entry report. That's not on this detail tonight. I think we're recognizing that's going to be a necessary step. So. But how does council take this feedback and then direct staff, direct me on what this project is expected to entail? I think that's to be determined, right? It's to be determined.
Thank you.
But, so we have 4 months-ish, right, to get this 2.5, 3.5.
The survey was gonna be completed in December.
That's my intent.
That's pretty important information.
It is. That gives you the sense of where everything lies in the world. It gives you elevation so you can understand drainage and vertical. Lets us know exactly what we're going to be designing around. So yeah, that's an important consideration when we come forward and have to do an engineered project. We don't have that detail yet. Preferably to do that detail before it's buried in snow, just so we can capture all that content and detail that's necessary. So the recognition is that there's a cost to that survey, and if we're not going to move forward with the project, the emphasis of that decision tonight, then we didn't want to incur that cost. So that's it's a very literal step process to this. So that's the next step, but it would only be worthwhile next step if we're actually going to use that content to deliver a plan and spec. So it's the necessary first step in the delivery of a plan and spec, but it hasn't been authorized yet tonight. That's the resolution that's before council. So hopefully that answers your question.
Were we considering a 20% assessment instead of 30? Didn't we talk about that? at one time?
Talked about between 20, 25, and 30, we kind of got different ones, and we were trying to see what the numbers were gonna come into, so.
Okay. Well, that would be a big difference, I mean, from 20 to 30.
It's still a conversation you can have through the whole process.
I'd like to hear from you.
Bringing 30% down to 20% is still an option that's on the table.
It can be discussed all the way through the project if that percentage, if we go between 20 and 30, determining what we would need to do for assessments. So that's not set in stone as of going forward tonight either. That can still be addressed throughout the whole project.
Assessments is like just we're gonna get a bill in the mail and start making payments, or it's gonna be tacked onto our taxes? How exactly does it happen?
It can be done both ways. You can pay it outright if you want to, or you can have it assessed on taxes as well, and it's spread out.
Right, spread out for the year or whatever.
Spread out.
I think it's 15
It's
years.
for usually the length of what we have our bond payment for, which could be, I think we're looking at
20.
20. We're looking at 20 right now for bond. So it would be spread out over that 20 year
That helps
time.
a lot too.
Right.
All
It's
in
not
favor
where-
of the 20%? Oh,
It
wait.
depends on what they're doing. If he seems like his mind is made up, it's gonna be exactly what it is. He's.
I'm tired of the rust in my water.
Hey.
And I'm tired of the water coming in my basement when it rains, and I've only been here since April. So it needs to get done.
That started when they did the highway.
I know, that needs to be fixed too, right? But, yeah, I'd like cleaner water coming into my house for sure.
I'd like to know if any of the property owners are totally opposed to this project. Could you raise your hand if you're totally opposed to this whole thing?
As it stands, what he said, or without any adjustments?
Well, as it sits right now.
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Yeah, it needs to be adjusted for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some really good stuff brought up tonight, I think needs to be done.
You're for a project.
Right. Yeah, that's what
You're for a project, it's not.
Yeah, not like it sits right now.
Well, not for this project. What's new for this?
Well, a project in general, to fix the water line, sewer line, like, unless you're okay with the way it's fixed. That was me, that's how I took this question. Something needs to be done, but you're not against something being fixed.
Not it's a good fit, this isn't a good fit.
Right. We still have time to adjust it.
That's why it's a preliminary.
Yeah, preliminary.
Okay.
Corey, I have one question about streets in other cities, with widening or making them smaller. Has there been studies done on if it makes people go slower or like speed up and speed wise? I know some people have been concerned about narrowing the road. Traffic's already pretty heavy in these areas. Is there any studies that have been done with the road being narrowed that helps slow traffic down?
Yeah, I'd have to cite studies specifically, but I think there is an industry accepted kind of ideology that a narrowing of a street does tend to reduce traveled speeds. Similar concepts are made in bump out situations. If you see those in downtown environments, it's a restricting of the road corridor itself that kind of it drives the driver to be more attentive and more aware of their surroundings, which then the reaction is to reduce speed, to be more aware of your surroundings. So I'm not saying that was a real fundamental consideration here, but 36-foot wide streets are very acceptable street widths. It meets MnDOT standards for state aid roadways. ADT is greater than Broadway Ave. So I'm not saying that 36 is ungrounded, but it is a change from the existing. That's been noted and certainly is understood. I think we came at it with cost in mind too. So I'd have to do some research and get real actual data on it, but it's certainly something that is practiced and I think is understood just kind of at a principle that narrowing street does have a tendency to reduce speed. I would say that is complemented though with also some striping to make sure that the traveled way, if you are reducing that, is identified in There's an observation of the driveway, the travel driving lane and the parking area. So something to consider as well, with where you just reduce the outside and then it's undefined space. It could still, in lack of parked cars, still feel like an ample road to drive the speed that you feel comfortable. So
I would still like to see that in writing. I'd like to see the report of that.
Is there a different way with the being that the turnaround is item of topic, is there a different way to finish off that street that could, or is that's gonna be the best way for either one direction or the other?
yeah, there's in a dead end street condition, there's really not a ton of flexibility. You could put it back how it is today, where it's no turnaround, just a dead end street. In cases where those might be extended, you certainly see that. In a true dead end situation like this one, you could argue, if you're not just gonna dead end the street as it is today in its existing condition, there's only really kind of two turnarounds that I think are accepted. One is the cul-de-sac that was, presented here listed preliminarily. It wasn't a roundabout, it was a cul-de-sac, but that's a acceptable, dead end street to allow for that mobility of that end vehicle. And even in the case of the radius isn't ample just to make a single turning radius, you can 3-point in that space. The other style is a hammerhead type configuration where you give opportunity to do that 3-point turn. That's challenging too when you have just restrictions of right of way. Oftentimes when these are constructed with intention and new development, you'll see a bubble that's created to give that right of way space to do an ample cul-de-sac. Here we don't have that, and are kind of restricted right of way wise. So I think the cul-de-sac was a thought. I think the cul-de-sac is only justified if you're going to reduce the street width, because you're still kind of preserving the street that's there today on the end for the turnaround movement, but then you're reducing the street width for the rest of the tangent section of it. So I think there could be further consideration in that for sure, but in lack of one, we felt like there is some defense to recommend one, but certainly something that can be removed or evaluated further.
We need a motion now to go forward.
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance or resolution 24-25, ordering improvement and preparation of plans for the 25 street and utility improvement project.
I'll second that as long as we bring this back up in either next meeting or it is brought up in changes in mind, because I do think changes need to happen.
Right. This is just so that they can move forward to go on to the next steps. So there would.
Then I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Hold on.
Yes, Mike.
It's your turn.
I must. Yeah. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good night. It'll get better. You don't want to patch things together. That's what does it. Other than that, like that. So the Nursing Care Center, I can honestly say we're doing very well. The average census for the month of October was 37. Current census is 34. We actually have have 6 people on the board. Potential move-ins by the end of the week. Couple are in consideration for, they're going through the Medicaid process. Otherwise, census is looking up, or will be looking up. And quality, we're looking at improving quality of life for the residents. We've got a group meets about that once a month, looking to help people be more engaged in our homes and the greater community. We've had some good success getting more people out to the dining room than used to be. After COVID, we had a lot of people that just shut down, they stayed in their rooms. Just bring my food here, I'm watching Gunsmoke, don't bother me. That kind of. Cody, we gotta turn Gunsmoke on when you get there? All right.
I might be there soon.
I'm good with that. But lately, actually the last month and a half since, I don't know, just before homecoming, we had a group of high school kids, juniors and seniors that came down, and we had excellent meetings with them. They come down now to help with bingo on Fridays. A couple of the gals have come down, and they have just to come down and play games with the residents. Really kind of nice. They get the residents more involved in their school life as well as their personal life, because these are the kids that, I mean, they're doing great. Some of these kids will graduate college before they graduate high school. I think that's phenomenal. I've got several of them that work for me that have done that the last couple of years. I think it's awesome. I wish I had had that opportunity as well. So we're getting the residents more involved in the life of those kids, getting the kids involved with the residents, and that kind of ties our whole community together. Yes, sir.
I was thinking about that on the way home the other day.
Yeah?
Have you ever toyed with the idea of having somebody that works there and is going to college to let them use an unused room for board while they're working and going to school?
Say that again.
Say you got somebody that's been learning or going to school to become a nurse.
Yep.
And they're working at your place, and you said they interact with the residents.
Yep.
What if you gave them a place to stay?
I'm working on those ideas.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
All right. I've got a couple of things I can maybe mention at the end here.
Okay.
Financially, October was a stressful month. We had a lot of up and down with census, and sadly, we've got a lot of staffing agency people, and they are on a contract. And if you don't give them the hours, you're gonna pay them anyway, so they might as well be there. So we did pay out a lot more in contract staffing than I would like to have done. But they take great care of our people for the most part, and I can't complain about it. But it is a direct result of the lower census and increased agency use. October is historically, as it says, one of our lower months, simply because it's not slippery yet. When people start sliding around, that's when they decide they gotta go to assisted living and nursing. When the son-in-law gets tired of scooping mom's driveway so that she can go uptown for coffee, that's when they decide that's kind of the way that works. But we don't wish any ill will on anybody, but typically December, January is when they start having those end of the year, or beginning of the year surgeries. That's when we'll start getting our Medicare numbers coming up, because that's when they get those hip surgeries, the knee surgeries, all of those types of things. We'll see better numbers then. In staffing, in October, we had 7 new staff members hired. And actually, there were a couple more in November. Housekeeper, dietary aide, CNAs, and a couple of nurses, which is wonderful. We needed all of them. You just couldn't ask for a better month for staffing. We made a few changes in the way we do that. And you notice on the water bill, a couple of months there was an ad on the back of that for staffing. We actually got a few people that said, hey, when can I start? What do I gotta do? A couple of them may not have been qualified. We're working on that. So always looking for certified nurse aides, always. Mostly evenings and overnights right now. RNs, LPNs, we still looking for evenings and overnights every weekend. Other stuff, well, gosh, here we go. We're looking, I am reviewing information for the USDA, rural development, to help us improve our building and expand our services to the greater number of people in the community. In doing that, my thought on this, and this is a preliminary thought, I've been thinking about it for months, but I'm just now starting to get into the development piece of it. I'm looking at trying to expand our building or improve our building. Nobody wants to get moved in with a stranger 6 feet away from you snoring. So we want private rooms. We can build private rooms. It's going to cost us some money. But if we do that, we can make, we've got our L-shaped building, and we could make it square or, I don't know, what other chevron shape. We could add a few more rooms, put in private rooms, and we would then have on the southeast corner, another, it'd be more of an activity therapy area where people could actually go and sit in the sunshine. Right now in our building, unless you live in a room that has a window facing south, you don't get to see the sunshine. Everything faces north. So to be able to put something in there like that, where people could go sit in the sunshine, we could have plants, we could have all kind of, more activity on that end of the building. And then the north end of the building, we could expand for greater therapy services, potential for, clinic's not really in favor of all these things, these ideas, but I talked to the group and, what this community needs, since you took away our clinic, is we need to have the capability to go to someplace to get our vaccinations. We need someplace to go and get medication. We need someplace, just a call-in kind of thing. We need someplace to see the telehealth doc with a nurse standing right there running the machine so that I don't have to take a day off of work to drive my mom or my grandma all the way over to Rochester for an 8-minute appointment with the doctor and spend all day over there. We need that here. We need to be able to say, okay, this is what I had done. I had my knee done at your place a month ago. Here's the picture. Look at it. This is what I can do with it. Look at that. Give me the clear. Give me the high sign. Make this go away. We shouldn't have to spend that much money to go to the doctor. And telehealth is something that's taking over the world. So I think that's an optimal way of doing that. And if we could add on to our building, we could have that availability within the center that we currently have. The small space that we need. Also thinking of the future, looking at, some potential townhomes on the south lot, someplace that we could have couples that could move there, live in a townhome, be able to come to the nursing home for entertainment, food, the doctor, therapy, all of these things. And we can expand the nursing home and the community that way. And when they needed something, they could come to us and we'd have a bed for them. And then to really slam this home, Jason's idea, to the east of us, we got that, I don't know what that little road is out there, the parking space. I thought, well, why shouldn't we put a building right there? We could put a building there. We have a daycare on the first floor. And we could have the potential for a few apartments up on the second floor. And if you worked at our home, you get a break on your daycare and your apartment. Those are some ideas I'm kicking around. Anybody got any questions about anything other than that? Yes, sir.
You're mentioning telehealth. Would that be available for people in the community also?
Definitely. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Move to accept the care center report.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, guys. I don't have a whole lot. It's been kind of a mellow thing. I'm sure you got the quotes for the lift stations. Everything was calibrated out there in October. That's done. That's yearly, twice a year that happens. I fixed that 1.5-inch water valve in the basement before it blew out. There are 6 more of those that I would like to replace in the next 10 years. Get them all done, so.
What was the cost of it?
150.
Total? Labor too? Or
Well,
it's your
that's
labor?
cheap.
Gotcha. So it's not a
I
big
did
deal.
it.
It's not a big deal. It's cost.
Yeah. So that got done. It's hooked right to my main water. So it was blowing out already and has been for years. So to let it go any further, I could have walked into it, so.
You have other ones that are getting close to that?
Yeah, just over the next few, I don't know, 2-3 years, just replace one every year or whatever until they're all replaced. It's gonna be your best bet. So, unless they're on sale, then buy the whole job off.
We don't know what unknown substance came through the plant and killed all of them.
Rocks, sticks, cement,
It killed the microscopic
boulders.
bacteria.
Oh, for that part,
Yeah.
ooh. I just got everything back last week. Now it is gone again this morning. So whatever's getting flushed down the sewers is happening on a Sunday or a Wednesday. So, and it's kind of hard to go chase it down when you don't know where it's coming from. But if you've seen like on the suspended solids part on the graph, our plant can take in like, 336 or 365, 4,090 milligrams.
That ain't very much.
That's a lot.
Milligrams?
It's a lot. Yeah. I can only take so much of.
Oh, based on what should be. Okay, gotcha. I was
So
thinking. that isn't
something's
good.
coming in that's pretty
Milligrams?
nasty. So I'll be sending out some more educational stuff in the newsletter. But the pump wise, I thought you meant the pumps, Jody. That's
No, I was
the
talking about the-
sticks and rocks.
I was reading you when you talked about the, I understand how the microscopic bacteria works out there.
Yeah.
We can't have that.
No, so we're not quite sure. Tomorrow I'll be sampling for certain stuff in certain manholes in town, so you might find out tomorrow.
Okay.
You got the quotes.
Yeah, 2 quotes for the pump. That one you need replaced now, right?
That's the, I can't see that far. Is that
That's
the
what a
lift
pump
station?
The ABS Salzer pump,
The ABS.
pump 2. Yep. One's for 14,712 and the other one is for 12,978. Huh?
Yeah, the big one is at the plant.
That one that's the one that needs to be replaced now?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's that 10 bucks.
Okay.
And the other one is the one at Napa. So right now you only have one running at Napa.
Yeah. So
And then I think did Crane send one for that too?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
yeah, the Crane one's the cheaper of the 2
those 2 bids are for one project? not
for one pump.
2
Yeah,
projects.
one pump. Yeah,
Which one? Up there?
that one's for
That
the
one's at the main, at my plant.
yeah.
So you're not addressing the one at Napa in
Well,
this?
he's got it on there.
I don't know if it's on this one Can you grab the folder that's got Shell People Service on my,
Cause all you have is,
it's on the back side of my desk.
all you have is Crane and Minnesota Pump Works.
And Minnesota Pump would have been the
Maynard and
quote for the propeller.
But this is the one you needed right away, right? Yep.
The other one, the
Yeah.
$14,000 one, right?
Well, they.
Well, that's the same pump. It's just two quotes.
Yeah.
Yep.
They both need. You don't wanna wait too long on the other one, cause now your Napa pump is running nonstop because you only have one pump, so.
That's different.
Yeah, that's a different project. That's a different project. And the other one, I just noticed that this one says it doesn't include freight, and this one says nothing about freight. So that one's even more expensive.
Is there a reason why this one is so much more expensive than the other quote? Is there something more?
They're just two different, and I've used both of these guys, so, both of these companies we have used.
It's only
So you'd have to go
But
through
for
it.
the
I
same
gave them
thing?
both the same information.
Well, why is it?
Well, that's it.
But other pumps, this same
Mm.
pump, through another guy's 15,000 pump, so I don't. I don't know how they all come up with their.
And freight is not included in either of these quotes. Looks
I'm
like,
not sure, doesn't.
not
I
included
can't
in the
see the
first
freight.
one. This one, it
On
doesn't note.
Minnesota pump, does it show the freight?
That one says freight not included.
You know what? Those are, never mind. Those are two different quotes. Those are two different quotes. Those are from that one's for the lift station. That's why they're two different quotes. I didn't get a second one for Crane. That's why it's not in there. They didn't send Crane didn't send the other one for the other one. Crane didn't.
For the Napa one they didn't send?
I didn't get they didn't send the second one for that one.
For the ABS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 10 horse is a.
Yep. I thought this was the second one for the shop one, and it's not. It's the one for the Napa pump.
From Crane.
Mm-hmm.
That one just needed a impeller at Napa. That one didn't need the whole pump.
Yeah, and this is for. You can come look.
I still can't see it. Alright, give me a minute. Yeah, this one's at the plant.
Oh, you have Napa lift pump on top of there.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
So that is
This
right
a
then.
10 horse. Your Napa
Okay.
ones are like 2
Okay,
point.
so that is the same quote then.
That's the same one for the Crane one.
The Crane one and the Minnesota Pump Works one is the same one then.
Yeah, that's the only place that you got the 10 and 20 horses.
Yeah.
Are out at the
Any other things to consider between them as far as, you work with both, but one
Yeah.
or the other? Or we're looking at
Minnesota
options?
Pump comes once a year and inspects the pump, all 8 lift station pumps. Crane has put you guys' valves in, and then.
Crane did a phenomenal job with those valves.
Yeah.
They did do a phenomenal
And they
job.
do the bar screen work too.
Yeah.
The bar screen is out in the prelim.
They're $2,000 cheaper even with
Without
the
shipping on.
freight and stuff.
Because it does say at the bottom that taxes and shipping charges are not included.
Yeah, neither of them include the freight.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that. They both do a really good job, so.
So do we need to approve this?
Yeah, she needs that pump. So I don't have a quote for the other pump then.
Just for, did we get one from Minnesota Pump? Impeller?
Mm-mm. No.
They don't help very much.
But yeah, you'll need to approve one of these.
I'll make a motion to go with Crane for the $12,978.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the other thing I had in here, Stell, was the heater. Did that one you need approved too as well? Or could-
That all depends on if they did the installation
Oh.
in the shop. That just the ceiling. So if you didn't insulate it, you don't need a heater.
Okay. So she got a quote for the insulation on the shop, but that's quite a bit.
That was put in many, many years ago, but it never got done. You know, it was brought to council a long time ago.
So,
I think in 21 it was brought to council, but no one ever acted on it. So. And we do keep city equipment in there, the street sweeper and mowers, and I don't keep my.
Does it need to be heated?
It should if you have a lot of that in there. All my fire hoses are in there, all that stuff.
Otherwise, it can go down to 20 below because it's that cold outside.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, all 6 of our pumps
Just
are
pumps
in
like
there.
spare parts, but not pumps that are working.
Those are emergency pumps.
I mean, running on a day-to-day basis.
No.
They're not in there. I mean,
Well, they're in the building on the other side of the wall. I have 2 big blowers. that run
as
in-
parts or are they part of a working
No, they're
unit?
running
Okay.
part of the plant.
Okay.
But then
That's-
all of our emergency pumps are in that building also.
Did you seek out any other installers?
That was the only one I really seriously could find.
I mean, I know him personally, that's just something
Matt
against
Nader?
him,
Yeah.
but I know of 2 others that at least would be.
yeah, I would like to get a couple extra
Yeah, you should
bits,
write those down
bids on that before we,
and get those to me so I
I mean,
can call
he
them.
does a great job, he's done stuff at our farm, but still going for price, so.
Oh, yeah, you should get me those numbers.
Should
That
they-
would be nice.
yeah, I would appreciate that because I need to do a little more digging too because we're about tapped out on wastewater.
Well, and I think it has to be fire coded too, so that's the other part of it.
I saw that.
Right now, as it is, the snow comes in through the top of the shed and it goes on top of the blower room and then it goes on top of my whole control panel, all the electric.
Come through the
all-
sockets?
Huh?
Come through the sockets or what?
Yeah, so the room is only, it's a room in a room. So now all the snow comes in and goes right on the control panel. So,
Basically a dusting? Or is it a
oh
lot?
no, it leaks right through the light, yeah. That's how much snow you get in there. And I think that's probably why in 2021, they had, that Brad or, who was the other?
Brad or Josh?
No, he was the cop.
Josh.
Josh,
Yeah.
why he put that in there because of the issues it was having, but then he left and I got here and I had no idea it was even on the table.
Well, let's get a few more and bring it back in December.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, Brian, you could get me those numbers, that would be great.
Is that it? It is.
Anything else? Any other questions? No?
I move that we accept.
I'll call Minnesota Pump too. Or Crane, sorry, Crane, to get the other one, to get the other quote for the impeller.
I make a motion to accept the people service report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Hey, council. How we doing?
Not bad.
Well, snow equipment's ready. Wait. We did a lot of leaves this year, I think. Probably more than we've ever done. Hopefully that'll help in the spring. We're gonna start with the ice rink tomorrow. We're gonna put down a little layer down. Hopefully hopefully it'll stay cool enough for, won't waste any water. Food truck at DOT, it did have, the heater motor was out of it, so they had to put a new motor in. I don't know if you got
Nope.
Christmas lights will be probably going up and banners will probably be going up next week. All depends on, supposed to be 20. We get some sunshine, we'll put them up. Yeah. The only thing I'm really looking for is salt sand from Vulcan Excavating. It went up $1 from since last year. So we're looking at right about $1,200 dollars.
What did we do last year at the beginning?
I got it through him, but I also had a reserve with the county. So.
Last year was pretty mild, we didn't need.
Yeah, I know, we didn't need much.
Yeah, we didn't use much. So.
Let's hope for that again.
I moved to approve the salt and sand at $97 a yard. Was it 12.5 yards?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you have any questions?
I got one. You said to burn the dump. Is it closed for bringing leaves down yet or not?
Oh, we have it open. I was gonna ask you guys, what do you think? Should we close it for the winter at any time? We've never done it before, but that's usually when, stuff coming in that shouldn't be there.
Stuff.
Stuff is right.
Would you barricade it off so people can't go in there?
We have a fence down there and a gate down, so.
Okay. Yeah.
I was wondering, because I just got some leaves and I can't find anybody to vacuum them up, so I may have to.
Couldn't we give a notice to the public, say we're gonna close it at a certain time? And then
I think so.
in case anybody's got any last minute
Mhm.
stuff that they wanna do.
Maybe give them a couple weeks notice, maybe. Help me take care of that. That's really all I have.
Move to approve the street maintenance report.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Tony, garbage and recycling.
All right,
contract?
garbage and recycling RFP went out. You had 2 haulers submit bids, Thompson Sanitation and Waste Management. I believe you have representatives from both here tonight. Yep. So their proposals were attached to the information. They were not apples to apples completely. So obviously there's information for you to look at. You are welcome to ask questions to both of them if you so choose. Otherwise, I do have a spreadsheet put together. We do have approximately 500 homes serviced in town based on utility bills. So with Thompson's, garbage is $17.25, recycling $7, annual rate increase of 1.5. They do have a fuel surcharge, tonnage for cleanup day 52, and then additional cart 7. Additional cart, don't even look at that, because if we do an additional cart for somebody, we pass that on to the customer, so that's not important for anyone to understand. Waste management, 65 gallon of 1650, 96 gallon 1710, recycling 650. They do not have a fuel surcharge, but their annual rate increase was 5%. So basically, I can get this to calculate out. Eric said, I did ask Eric, most people in town have a 65 gallon cart. So if you calculate out on the 65 gallon cart and work it out on the contract cost, there's your breakdown in contract cost overall on the contract.
Can you point to that again?
Well, if you work it out, here's the 3-year base down here. However, I guess I don't know. Maybe Thompson's could, I don't know what you guys have for carts out there. I have a 96 gallon cart. I thought more people had 96 gallon carts. So,
It's mostly 60, 65 gallon carts.
Okay.
But we do offer the 95. We give residents a chance if they want a
Yeah.
35.
sure.
One thing to note, you said with the fuel surcharge, that's only if we get up above $5 a gallon.
Right. Yep.
And then we have that 4% home discount as well.
Yep.
That was on there, the Stover discount is what we like to call it, so.
Yep. So like I said, it's not apples to apples. So I would encourage you guys, it's your guys' decision to make. The two providers are here. The data is here. Councilmember Gerke put together some figures too for you guys. So it's the ball's in your guys' court to discuss it with the two bids that you received tonight.
Just a quick note, we would only charge the city for those who were actually in town. So if they're gone 30 consecutive days, they can be taken off. All they have to do is notify the city. We take off the total number that we are charging the city. So. And then the recycling cards, we do an upgrade or an extra free of charge.
Yeah, that's all in their proposal too as well. So.
Like you just said, you brought up the upon request on a bigger recycling, but then I enjoy the bigger recycling, but I didn't see an option for the smaller recycling in case that's a concern for some people. I like bigger carts, but a lot of people just want small things though too. So same thing there where it's the same cost, no matter if you want bigger or smaller on the recycling.
That's correct.
And that would be the same price, your $650, whether it's bigger or smaller on the recycling card.
Yep.
This isn't a question for these guys, but on our billing for garbage, we don't have a recycle on that.
The city has always paid the recycling contract, and then
Now they won't?
No, we still do. The city's intention has always been to cover the recycling cost, and then the homeowners pay the consolidated garbage
So
cost.
the billing on our bill would still look the same,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
a different amount.
Well, yeah.
So would we be doing different pricing for different people if they choose a different size?
No, the intention would not be to.
Okay. No. It'd be the same if they went to a smaller one or?
Yeah, the city would bill. The city's intention would. Well, ultimately it's up to you guys, but my preference would be that the city would charge this amount of dollars for consolidated garbage service, whether the person had a 35, 65, or 96 gallon cart. Otherwise, Heather and I have to change bills regularly, and then every time Eric delivers a different cart, then we have to try to update that, and it becomes a very challenging.
And when do we need to have this? Do you want approval? When's the deadline?
Well, the hope was that you would award it sooner than later, but I mean, the hope was tonight because budget is December. Because ultimately these numbers have consequences for the budget for next year. So the award date in the RFP that you approved was tonight. So. Because ultimately the recycling cart contract will be part of the 2025 budget.
would not, if you look out at, if
If
it's
you
a
look at-
5-year contract.
Right.
When you go out 5 years, what's the?
Right, I know.
Is that normal, all these 5-year contracts?
That one we've only done it once so far.
Also 5 years ago, again? Makes sense.
Guess I don't even know. I mean, obviously we're deciding on one, but if it's like awarding, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Or are we,
Well, I think this is for just a 5-year contract.
like it didn't say, or we could name whatever year. Another year, right?
I don't know.
That's like, I don't know, it wasn't really stated. Unless you guys know, was this meant for going like 5, trying to do like that 5-year contract? Or do we gotta believe it?
Is that usually the
Something,
standard?
just-
Is that usually the standard?
3 or 5.
3 or
I
5?
know those. You agree? 3 to 5 is, yeah, 5 would be fine. I mean, it's nice to build a plan 5 years out, that whole heat, like, put myself in your shoes on that one.
If it's gonna be a 5-year contract.
Then what Thompson guys,
But
but
then that's cheaper than.
they had the 2 separate prices for the different garbage size. Was there one? I think maybe what was sent out was a little confusing, so what should be sent back is that. Yeah, the 17.5 for the 64, 65. Those are different price for the 90s. Just a hot request coming.
I know, I wish I had.
Each time it's 30 something. Super small, I mean, there's not that many people that do, but.
I think there's maybe have like.
Yeah, but if it goes over
Right.
$5 a gallon, it's right here down there.
Decrease in the garbage costs for residents? Because we're looking at.
Oh, here's one. 1.5.
That's a parking one? Easier than a street.
3%. Let's say one, let's say.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Is that less than what we know?
That would just ask you.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the
I would
line
have
item, I
to,
think.
I would have to,
Right.
I would have to dig in a little closer.
If they weren't buried under the street, it would cost so much.
Oh, excuse me.
Let's see. On waste management, I don't see that. Fuel surcharge.
There's not, there's no.
Okay. That's all I can see.
And Thompson's is only if it goes over $5.
Yeah.
Well, they're both on certain prices. They're both on certain prices. We're looking at going more. Has the bulk rates for the, like, throwing appliances away changed any in the last few years? Because some of those prices I wouldn't want to pay. $100 for a washer. Is that for the recycle for the yearly cleanup?
That's what the county, I think.
Is the county not these guys?
No, that's, yeah, that's what the county charges.
Okay.
They've increased it.
Have they? It's a lot of money.
Yeah, they have increased everything this year.
Can you go back to my memo for a second? What did it say? Okay, can you? Okay.
Tony,
Yeah.
Tony, for businesses, they do their own contracting,
Yep.
is that correct? The city
Yep.
doesn't have any involvement in it?
Correct.
For businesses, they
Oh.
contract there. I just wanted to make sure it was still the
Yeah,
same.
that's in.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, we're in the discussion stage, obviously. I've been happy with both providers and thank you for providing the services you have since we've gone to this way of doing things. Obviously, the initial first year, I mean, discussing with council, I see Waste Management being lower than Thompson, but the long-term projection is Thompson, at least at like a 5-year mark would be way, I guess, way under, like definitely catch up and then surpass being less of a future expense. If you guys see the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't need any more discussion.
Making a motion or?
I'll make a motion to go with Thompson's for a 5-year contract.
It's 3.
Oh, it's 3. Oh.
Yeah, it's still less.
So less. So going Thompson's with the 3-year contract?
Correct. That's what I would.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys for sitting through the first hour and a half of.
Thank you.
Get your stuff.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'll be in contact, Anthony.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you very
You bet.
much.
Have a good one.
Yeah. Moving on. Business. October 24th check registers. Anybody have any questions on the check register?
I've got one. It's not really a question, but some of these things going to Quill or going to Amazon, why can't we go to hometown merchants on some of
Because a
these?
lot of the stuff they don't have.
You try and go there?
Sometimes, yeah, but a lot of the times they just have one item or 2 items are not bulk items.
Okay.
A lot of times it's, we're replacing 26 light bulbs and they just don't have 26 light bulbs.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
I see a charge here for the bot for towing. Doesn't that go to the owner of the vehicle?
It was something with a tire on the squad car or something.
We responded to an accident and a tire blew after the fact, so they were already there, so they replaced the tire.
Oh, it was on the police station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know
It's on
that.
a city one. City car, yep.
Oh, okay.
What's USA Blue Book?
It's a provider for wastewater and water treatment stuff, supplies.
Was the FD phone?
What?
Never addressed before?
What was that?
Fire department phone.
What about the fire department phone?
Combining the $670.
It's just is it Verizon?
It says FD phone.
Yeah, it's just the first,
Or
it's the,
underneath phone.
oh, it's just, it takes the first thing that's written as the description. So it probably said fire department ambulance. It just takes the first thing. So it's all the phones.
What's the one on the fire department repairs and clean equipment for 2,400?
It would have been, which page? First page or second page?
I think it's
Almost to the bottom.
Yeah.
Right above the library, I'm guessing.
It was for, I don't know what it was for. It was for something with the fire department. It would have been McQueen. It would have had to been,
Something that broke on you.
it was either the truck or the compressor across the street.
take that workman's comp insurance out for the whole year?
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna hope so.
Yeah, we get our workman's comp and property and casualty bills in October and November.
Shall we get supplies at Wagner Food?
The water plant got bleach for the chlorine filter at Wagner Foods.
You know, she's having $200 worth
I'll make a motion to accept the check.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
24 financials for October.
It still it's sound like a broken record, but the ambulance collection was $112 for the whole. Oh,
Yeah, I'm still waiting for some information from two other providers, but I think we got. I'm like I said, I think we'll be okay for 2025 with the changes we're making and the new provider. I think we'll be okay.
I don't know if you've explained this before or not, but I see there's some blue numbers on the water utility fund. I mean, I remember red from when you're not making a profit. What's the blue? Highlight.
Name and loss you're talking about?
On page 10.
Yeah.
24 year-to-date amount and month-to-date amount, they're all in blue.
Because we made more than we lost. I don't know why it's blue, but that's the reason they're blue.
I don't think I've ever seen it blue before. It's either been black.
The financial software felt good that day. It was happy that day. It was feeling good.
I'll make a motion that we accept the, what am I trying to say there?
Financials.
Financials. There we go. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, electronic lock installation and upgrades.
So we've put 2,000 into capital reserves both in 2023 and 2024 for lock upgrades for the ambulance and the administration. So I would like to utilize those funds in order to upgrade the IT furnace room and the ambulance staff quarters to our current security system, which logs who's going in and out of those doors and at what times. Specifically, the staff quarters for the ambulance, just obviously for security purposes. And then Eric and I have been discussing water plant security upgrades for 2025 and 2026, including door security and cameras. And in order to do that, there needs to be an upgrade to the switch that's on the security system. So I'd like to utilize those funds to do that. Luke from Streamline Communications was here, and in order to do that, 3893.63, and that'll work with that system. So I'd like to utilize the 4,000 set aside as part of the capital funding for that project.
Is that going to include for that 25 and 26 updates for the water plant?
That is to upgrade the technology on the back side of the server in order to pipe the technology over to the water plant.
Okay. But the other stuff out there will cost us
Extra eventually at that time. Yep.
Sounds good. I'll make a motion that we accept the bid for 3893.63 for the communications for the IT and the furnace room and the other ones.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Newly elected officials training.
With the two new elected officials coming on, there is a newly elected officials training in Mankato, February 7th and 8th. I have spoken to Matt. Matt is very interested in attending to the training. I have not heard back from Josh, but the training is $350 per person. I did put $700 into training in the council budget for the 2025 budget at this time. So I'm asking the council to approve the cost of that course for the two of them should they choose to attend.
Yes, it is. I'll make a motion to put that money in there for the two new council members.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Budget.
Just a quick conversation as far as budget goes. Janda and Chief Brugger and I talked real quick the other day, and I know Jason, we've had this conversation in the past about, trying to maintain our police officers, keeping them here as opposed to this revolving door that we have with part-time staff. So we did some digging and trying to figure out, if maybe being able to manage with 3 full-timers as opposed to part-time staff and how that could work. So I did crunch some numbers, and Chief Brugger didn't really want to go without a part-timer just because of some issues with some scheduling. But after crunching the numbers, I was actually kind of surprised that eliminating that part-time position and with the increased revenue for having a full-time officer from the reimbursement from the state of Minnesota, that it's actually basically a wash for the budget.
Is that reimbursement from the state of Minnesota continuous, or is it like a
It's
one-time,
nope.
two-time
It's
thing?
as long as you maintain full-time staff, full-time law enforcement staff. It's a reimbursement for what the city puts into the retirement fund for the police department.
So we won't be out.
Nope. It's as long as you maintain full-time staff, it's reimbursement for full-time staff. So if you look here, and this is just to. So what I did is this is the current where we sit now, and the only changes that I made is when we switched the pay policy from that you guys adopted at the last meeting for the council, that dropped the percentage of the budget. And then, as I told you in the email for the council packets, property and casualty insurance decreased 6.5% for the city. So what I did is I took 4% of that decrease and figured that in based on the rates that I had projected in there. And then our workman's comp went down 20%. And what I did is I projected a 10% decrease in there because I don't necessarily trust that full 20% is going to be in there. So I put those two in there, and it dropped our 16.21 down to 14.51.
Off the top of your head, do you know what it would if we got the full 20? Would it drop it down?
Probably another 0.5%, probably down to 14, maybe is where we'd be. So that's where we sit. So basically, this is the way it works out for everything as it sits for the police department with a police chief, 1 officer, and a part-time staff at 2,200 hours. This all breaks down. Tax levy works out to 14 point that. If we close that out and go to looking at it as a full-time, oh, please, internet, don't die on me now.
What's the prognosis of being able to hire to that spot?
Well, we currently have a full part-time officer who's working about 76 hours a
And they-
paycheck, and they would be interested in serving in that spot.
So it wouldn't be much of a search.
Right. So this is the breakdown of 2 full-timers, and then it would basically maintain a 200-hour part-time position to fill in any inequities. And then the increased revenue side would be this police state aid would increase the revenue side for a tax levy of the exact same interest. So everything else is basically whittled down. So now basically what we need to talk about is where you want to sit for the final levy. So basically we're still maintaining a significant amount of street and seal coning. And I know that we talked, this is kind of where we want to spend that down. So I mean, if we spend this down to, if we knock that 40 out of there, we're looking at 8.38. And if we even
Go back to saying knock that 40 out of there. Go back and explain that a little bit more.
So what Jody talked about at the beginning of this whole process, when we talked about this process, is that, you know, last year we carried over about $200,000 of revenue that we didn't spend. Now, about 50,000 of that was that emergency service fund. That was a one-time cost. So we actually carried about $150,000 over. So Jody brought up a good point of, you know, instead of bringing a higher tax levy over, maybe instead of levying some of that money for capital improvements, for street funds and stuff like that, maybe we spend down some of that extra money we carried over for road projects and not levy that stuff to lower that tax money. So when we go to do some street repairs next year, instead of spending it out of the capital fund, we just spend it out of our general fund, you know, and spend some of that extra money that we had last year instead. So we're not levying that extra money onto taxes this year. We're just spending a little extra money that we had from last year as opposed to levying it onto this year's taxes.
Does that concept and figures dollar-wise feed into anything of what the concerns people brought tonight about getting assessed for the street repairs?
No.
That's all I need to know.
No. So, I mean, yeah. So, and that still leaves, I mean, we could still even drop that to 20, and then we're sitting at 6.8. And I would feel fairly comfortable. I mean, Eric, if we have 20,000 available for seal coating, that's a pretty good number, don't you feel? So, I mean,
Can we have the heat turned on? I'm freezing.
yeah.
They speak up, otherwise you gotta live with that for a whole year.
I mean, we can work with 20,000 for seal coating. I don't think that's a bad number. And I think, you know, with 50,000 for street overlay, even if we potentially have to spend another 25 or even 30 out of the general fund from last year, we should be in a pretty good spot for street stuff. So, I mean, it just depends on where you guys feel comfortable being at for the tax levy, because we need to know tonight where you want to be so that I can prepare those documents for our only meeting in December.
Go back to the percentage.
Yep.
And that's what there?
6.85.
I can live with that.
I mean,
and what was the next one higher? It went up to 8, wasn't it?
yeah, I mean, if you're a little concerned, I mean, we could go to.
And now these are other streets in town that are kind of crappy that you're just gonna.
Yeah, we would use that to mill and overlay on some spots that are bad, and then the seal coating what we usually do for seal coating is the spots that we milled and overlaid this year, we'll usually seal coat next year to cover those spots that we fixed last year.
So that would go from what to 7.8?
7.61 is where we would go if we just added 5 back in.
Otherwise it was 6?
6.85.
Well, I think we would get some goodwill from people in the community that if we had streets feeling a little bit better, they wouldn't mind going from 6.8 to 7.5 or whatever it is. I would feel good with that because some of these streets are kind of crappy, man, when you drive over them.
Yeah.
We can't set.
So.
You know, at least they might think that we're doing something.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess, you know, the direction I need is, you know, I mean, if that's where you need, if that's where you want to be, I'm fine with that. The more important direction I need is where we need to go with the police department, if you want.
It's kind of a wash.
Well, it is, but the thing about it is there's some insurance and stuff that needs to be taken care of if that's the case. And we can always do it next year, and if it doesn't work out, we can always go back
Well, if we
to.
stop more people and get those fines, that'll pay for it.
The thing is like, the problem is with the part-time department is, if, like, we've just gone through this where we've backgrounded somebody and we sent them to a medical and we sent them to a psych and we paid all this money and then we didn't hire them. So we've spent $500 on a medical evaluation. We spent $500 on a psych. We spent all this time backgrounding them and then they don't work out. And so now here we toss all this money away. The other thing on the flip side of that is, if we put an officer on the road, if it's a first time person, we buy them a bulletproof vest. Well, them things aren't cheap. So that's $2,000, $2,500. Well, that's not something that, like, if you buy a bulletproof vest for me, I'm sorry, but if Brandy's the next officer that comes on board, my bulletproof vest is not going to fit on Brandy, right?
No.
So now we're going to buy another $2,500 vest for her, and then she's going to stay for a year, and then she's going to find out that New Richland's not exactly the most, best place to get a paycheck, and she's going to move on to the more better paying place. And so now I got to buy another $2,500 vest. So, potentially investing in somebody who's willing to stay here, and we can pay that person and keep them here.
You don't think that insurance is gonna be a surprise that we don't wanna see?
That's all calculated into this budget.
So you're saying something about other insurance? Just before you talked about the.
What other
When we
insurance?
were talking about it kind of being a wash, you said there's some other factors with insurance.
Other factors with insurance.
You just said it.
Yeah.
When I had
5
said,
minutes ago.
because you were saying it was.
Oh, no. To get them started on insurance for January is what I meant by that. If
Oh, so
we
it's not
do
gonna be a
hire some,
surprise.
no.
Okay.
So,
So we need a motion then?
well, no, it's just we can start that way, and we can always change after the fact. I mean, it would take a resolution from the council to move. We would have to move.
Capital fund.
Well, we would have to just move, like, if after the first of the year you decide you're no longer going to do that, we would have to make a resolution to move money from the full-time budget back to the part-time budget if you chose to go back to a part-timer. But, I mean, but it's easier to do that than it is to try to, we can't really change revenue back the other way around.
Same dollar amount, you just put it into different accounts.
So that would eliminate part-time officers?
It would almost eliminate, it would keep one 200-hour part-time person, which basically would just be I need somebody to cover something. Yeah. But it would basically be, Chief Berger would know that person, and it would just be somebody that she can count on to just fill in that one spot here or there where she absolutely would need somebody to cover. It wouldn't be that revolving door where we have to find that person to fill a spot all the time.
And you did say that this figure depends upon going to that full-time,
What figure?
the 7.8.
No,
No?
it doesn't matter.
Oh, yes, it's a wash.
Yeah, it doesn't matter either way.
So can we have a motion for this to go to 7.8 for the tax levy?
Yeah, you can have a motion to set the fine. Well, you can direct me to do that. Yeah, but ultimately it's going to be a motion and resolution at the next meeting.
Oh, the next
Yeah,
one.
the next
Okay, okay.
We just want to know which direction he should go to get the proposal ready for the next
And
meeting.
get the dot, all the i's and cross the t's.
So moving the part-time guy to full-time, is there something, or?
You guys will have to hire that person.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I like when.
I like the direction we're at.
Yes, so do I.
I like the 6 and 7% better than, leaving and trying to put up the higher amount, because I think anything with a double digit is too high. And kind of looked over some of the numbers, but we kind of streamlined everything for budget wise in all departments of what we can.
Mhm. Yeah, I went through everything again on Friday before I sent everything to you, other than the the two insurances that I got from the league on Friday afternoon before I sent you guys the packet. The 20% workman's comp thing I was kind of blown away by, but
Yeah, is that because we haven't had any?
no, my personal opinion is I think probably workman's comp for law enforcement went down quite a bit.
I guess that's kind of where my thoughts are. I don't know where everyone else's is. Anybody else?
We don't need anything further, just
I would like a motion to direct me to go one way or the other.
On the 6 or the 7%? Or?
And staffing.
Oh, and for the PD?
Mhm.
two separate ones on that though.
Or one,
Okay.
don't matter.
I move that we give you the direction to hire a full-time staff or full-time police officer for the police department and to proceed with the levy as shown. So that's, yeah.
I'll second that.
You said second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. All right.
I have the water, sewer, and storm on here, but nothing's changed since I showed you last. I'll take one more look at them before the next budget cycle, and then, or before the next meeting, and we can.
We come up with a rate for that storm sewer?
So that we can talk about. So Heather and I went through. Heather is in the process of going through and looking at. So the way it's set up is residential less than 1 acre, residential over 1 acre. So how would you like? I know we talked about $5. Did you want to do just 5 and 550 if it's over an acre?
What if it's 10 acres? What if it's one?
Well, residential. No, there's nothing really over. So basic. So here, let me pull this up quick.
You know, is any over 1 acre here in town?
There's not. No, there shouldn't be many. Just let me so the only ones we need to concern ourselves with is 1 and 2, because I don't think is Birchview Apartments more than 15?
I don't either. I don't think they are.
I don't think they are either. So the only rates we need to worry about are 1 and 2. So I'd already set up 1 to be 5. So the only other one we need to figure out is what 2 is going to be.
What if we just aired down a caution and said, if they were over 15 units, what can we go? I mean, what dollar amount would you recommend?
Well, I looked at Janesville's $13.50.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Well,
but I don't think I couldn't find any residential property that was over an acre.
How would you bill that if the renters are paying the water bill? How would they, and you're putting this on the water bill, how would that be billed? You're not
That's
putting
up to the
$5 per,
landlord to
The landlord would
distribute.
distribute it through their, if they're paying through them.
but it's going on the bill. So
but it's
you know,
stormwater,
they're
the rent
paying-
has nothing to do with
Yeah.
stormwater.
Typically,
That would be
people
the
pay their own water bill. But we don't choose that if it's going on the water bill. Like the landlord doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
That's a good question.
How would you split that up? You can't charge each renter $5 when it's per building.
And if I was a renter, I wouldn't pay it at all.
Well, it's
Basically, we're just charging the property of the building.
But then property owners or,
let me call Quentin and ask him how he's dealing with that.
yeah, it would have to be, it would have to be separate. It wouldn't be
House
applied
departments,
to
or are you talking about complex?
any kind of,
Well,
if,
that makes a
Anybody
big
who has a
difference.
utility bill,
Mhm.
the charge.
Yeah, I think it's
if
billed by
you're
the
new to
utility
property,
bill.
You shouldn't, that's $10. Say you have a duplex, that they're, so two different families are living on the same property, but they're being charged double.
So they're
they
both getting
would be
charged.
paying.
Mhm.
So then a building of 15 residents, each person would be paying $5, but the property next to it is just as big and they're only paying $5. That doesn't make,
That's what I'd say, it'd be landlord, not the renter.
which makes sense, but then you would have to apply it separately because a lot of renters pay their water bill, so you wouldn't be able to apply it to the water.
You'd only apply it to the
To the
landlord.
one.
Yeah.
For the property.
Well,
It would just have to be a separate bill, yeah. like-
we have, so I think we're okay until almost January adopting it because the utility bills for December wouldn't go until January 13th anyway. So let me
Get a little more information.
let me talk to Clinton and see how they're billing it out, if especially for renters, because that, let me figure that out. But I would say that the base rate one is going to be 5 because that was technically the plan that we had kind of always decided on. But we'll figure that out. So, but yes, I already had that. I already had the fee schedule as on the agenda for December already, with that already on there.
Is that 5 to 550 average for towns of our size?
It's all over the board. It's
In those larger businesses and buildings, are we going by impervious space? You know, they're.
it's set up by acreages. So the class 1 is residential 0 to 0.9 acres. Class 2 is residential 1 or more acres, multifamily 2 to 15 units, churches 0 to 4.9 acres. Basically everything is 0 to 4.9 acres. And then medium commercial is 5 to 9.9 acres. And then 4 is anything 10 acres or more. So in town, we shouldn't have anything more than 2 rate class 2, I don't think. But I'll have more information on that for you at the next meeting.
Do you want us to decide the 1 and 2?
No, let me
Hold on.
let me figure out some more information for you before you decide. Because if we figure out amounts and then it doesn't make sense how we're billing, it doesn't make sense. So, you cold?
Yeah, furnace is on.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I remember you started off because people couldn't hear.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting cold. I used to go this way.
All right, so then.
Just a quick note, next Thursday, Houston will be here to do a quick short presentation. I will be meeting with them on Monday to kind of go over some information. They're planning to do a presentation on kind of the same stuff that they talked about, but I'm going to talk to him about some more information to provide. And then he's planning to stay over to answer any and all questions from the community and council that they may have. Along with Chris Howard and Doug Christopherson will be here as well from the county to answer more questions as well. I am also going to try to get the county to blow up some maps the same size that Corey had some of his stuff here for the open house from Bolton and Mink, so that we can have some bigger maps, hopefully. If not, I'll try to put them up here on this computer.
To clarify, this meeting is going to be kind of like what the street project was, an open house.
Yeah, there will be a short presentation to this one at the beginning, but it's not going to be the whole project. The presentation is going to start at 6 and it's going to be literally like 10 minutes and then it's going to be done. And then it's just going to be basically a question and answer session for those guys, and they're going to be spaced out around the room to answer questions.
The flood project.
The flood project, yep. So. Continue to work on the budgets, working with Houston Engineering, worked with Corey on some stuff, worked with getting some bids on from Waste Management and Thompson's. I have a meeting with LELS tomorrow, finally. Attended the street project open house. Working with Pam Krill from the Workforce Center on some stuff coming up at the school. Attended a community partners emergency management meeting, working on some flood grant opportunities. And Ryan's got a birthday on the next council meeting. So,
Can you explain what Secret County Community Partners?
so it is public health and all the cities and Mayo Clinic and just a lot of the responding, kind of put together during COVID at first.
Mainly healthcare stuff?
No, I guess it's kind of loosely based on health. It was started during COVID more or less, and it just kind of kept going just to kind of touch base.
Is it involve Janesville?
Yep.
Waldorf?
Oh yeah. Yep. The whole county. Yep.
Okay. Make a motion to accept the city administrator's report.
All in favor?
Motion adjourned.
All in favor?
Aye.